While Valentine's Day has ended, we are still in the season of love. And today's topic, we'll be talking a bit on my dating life along with how I've gone through my journey of romance. So, welcome back to the Tales of a Black Woman podcast. And today's topic is the evolution of the mature romantic. If you're new here, I highly recommend you subscribe so you can follow for more episodes. We talk about all things culture, womanhood, media, and entertainment across my channels. And let's get right into it. So, first things first, I feel like I can dub myself a hopeless romantic. I love romance. I do. From the books that I read to the shows that I watch, especially the anime that I watch. I am a romance type of girl down. And it's been like that ever since I was a kid. I've dreamed of my wedding probably since I was about 10 years old, or however old I was to get access to a Pinterest account. I had boards on boards on boards of different wedding dresses. I was in love with a sweetheart neckline and a ball gown. I wanted to feel like a Disney princess. I wanted to get married under a waterfall or by a lake. I wanted my proposal to be like at Disneyland or something, or I wanted it to be something really intimate with my partner, but super memorable. And growing up seeing all of the Disney Channel original movies with the couples, or just seeing a lot of like TV shows with couples, or especially when I was heavy into my reading era, reading plenty of slow burns and watching a lot of rom-coms. I had this idealistic approach to how I wanted to be romanced until I finally got my first boyfriend and I started getting interested in dating. When dating finally came into the picture, man, I had to learn very quickly that, especially younger boys are not ready yet, typically, to settle down or think that far ahead. And this isn't to categorize everyone, but with all the guys that I dated leading up to my current boyfriend, well, my current and my past boyfriend, I struggled with dreaming of that settled down future of thinking of a wedding, of thinking of marriage. Now you might be wondering, Ayana, why were you so obsessed with getting married so young? I think I definitely come from a family where, like, how do I best put it without saying too much on the internet? It wasn't a stable, fully stable familial structure where you saw a lot of couples. That's where I want to say it like that. My family doesn't have a lot of couples. And I was obsessed with this idea of having the married life, having the children, the nice home, the stable house. I think a lot of people end up having that same type of dream, but I really honed in on finding a good partner and being married. And that meant that I also was someone who heavily wanted to date to marry, dated with that intention. And it took a while for me to date for, well, not quite not to marry. I think actually I've kept that same idea throughout my entire life. But if as I grew older, I grew in my discernment quickly of knowing who would be a good guy to try to pursue marriage with, and who is a guy where, you know what, it's cute dating him, but it's not going to go past that point. He's not the one, right? I got my first boyfriend when I was a sophomore in high school. I had crushes much earlier than that, of course, but my first boyfriend was in sophomore year in high school. And I remember I thought this guy was my dream guy. I thought that he was it. I thought that he was going to be my husband off jump. And I think that overzealous nature not just scared the poor guy off, but also it took away from us building up the relationship as well. I think that it's one thing to have the intention. I think that that's something I never want to lose. But I think it became such an obsession that it took away the fact that we were still just in high school. We would still have to get through high school, get through puberty, get through us finding ourselves. Then we would have to get through college. That's a whole nother arena of finding ourselves. Hope that we can both get work, hopefully be closer to each other. There were so many milestones that had to be reached before we can think about the wedding part, the marriage part, right? And for me, it was just like, oh, well, like we're gonna make it out of. I have no concerns over that. But now that I'm out of college, I'm realizing just how long that journey is, and just how much I'm like, man, I'm just now thinking again about like seriously thinking about getting married now that I'm out of school. I live out of my parents' home. I have the job. Like now thinking about a wedding is a step that's a little bit more realistic, you know? So after that, like I thought me and him would be the high school sweethearts. I think I loved that idea too because I was watching once again plenty of Disney Channel movies where there were plenty of high school sweethearts. And when it didn't work out, that definitely hurt. It hurt a lot and it was a wake-up call very quickly. I moved on, I dated a good couple of other guys after that. Knew that they were not going to be the one. And I also quickly I started learning about the traits that I wanted in a partner. I realized the type of nature that I was looking for. Like I realized I love a guy who isn't crazy stubborn and is willing to admit that not just that they're wrong, but like also willing to have open and honest conversations. I'm not someone who likes to attack my partner in a way. Like I don't scream, I don't yell. It's not in my nature to unless I'm extremely upset. So I needed someone who one also wasn't going to scream at me because if I don't scream at you, what are you screaming at me for, right? But I also needed someone who was going to be emotionally mature. That's the word for it. Where we can have conversations when we're hurt. We can have conversations when we make each other upset, stuff like that. Now, obviously, it's one thing if we have to step back, we have to reflect, then come back to the conversation. That's fine. But I don't like elephants in the room. I want to address the issue, and I want us to be able to be honest and open about our feelings. And all this type of this one quality came from many years of having to deal with guys who either would like shut down quickly and we would never address the elephant, or by the time the elephant is addressed like things have gotten so much worse and now things are irreparable, you know what I mean? um so yeah, as I went through my dating, y'all might be sitting here like, well, Yana, like you're only about to turn 25, you haven't dated that many people. I've dated what, 8 or 9 people, so I have dated a couple short-term relationships, but I do have a good couple under my belt. um I realized what I started quickly realizing what I wanted out of a partner, what I wanted out of a relationship. I started realizing like I want to be with someone where growing is constant because I am constantly growing and evolving. So it wouldn't be great if I'm with someone who is stagnant. Not to say, you don't have stagnant periods of time, but I wanted consistent growth, where if we're stuck, we can help each other work through it. Once I got into college and especially after college and I went through therapy, I wanted someone who also went through therapy. I don't think it's much of a hot take to say I think everyone needs to go through therapy at least once. Even if you don't feel like you were heavily traumatized, you have gone through some sort of trauma. And before you enter things like a marriage or have kids, I think it's important to work through that, to be able to start the healing process, to have these conversations easier with your partner too. Um yeah. And as I'm in this current era of myself with my partner, I realize now I do love. I'm realizing now my love languages. That's the word that I'm trying to say. I while you're in high school, you don't really have that much money to do things like buy gifts or go on dates or do these type of things. And college too, broke college student life. You know what I mean? I did go through college working, but it was pretty normal in my relationship where either I was paying for things or if I was giving a lot of gifts. I was giving a lot of myself, whether it was time, energy, Tears. I had to learn how to one balance me, have more pour more into myself, but also knowing what do I want a partner to give to me. I do know that I love gifts. I love gift giving. I am definitely a gift giver in my love language, but I realize like, I do want to go out on dates. I do want to receive the flowers. I do want those things that might seem kind of cheesy. I want them. I adore it. I really, really do. I love obviously my physical affection. I'm a hugger to my core. Even if we're just meeting, I love a good hug. I love the being in your space, the going on errands, the all those things. And I love words of affirmation. I think those are definitely my top 3. I love hearing like how much you love me. I love hearing how you feel. I love all of those things, and I only learned that through this like researching and learning how I love to show love and how I love to receive love. Past that, I had to also learn about attachment styles and how that shows up in a relationship. I had to learn how childhood traumas and not and how your childlike self shows up in relationships too. Cuz there's oh man, there's definitely a piece of like having to reconnect to your child self through therapy. Hello, hello, hello. It reveals a lot about a person that you won't get to know unless they've been able to do the work on themselves. Those child traumas manifest throughout your life and will overlap heavily, heavily. And I think vulnerability is a huge piece of what a quality I need in a partner. I think being vulnerable is honestly romantic because I love that there's a trust in being open and honest with me. But that can't come without work on oneself and without trust being built within the relationship too. Oh man, we had to learn a lot. I think I've had to go through a lot of like shadow work for myself, had to go through just a lot of experiences in general. And now I'm at the era of myself where, marriage talks are happening. And, we're talking more about what do we want out of being together? What do we want out of our future? And these are some serious conversations that 10-year-old Ayana, who wanted the sweetheart neckline and the dress, was not having just yet. Now we're talking about how do we want to raise kids? What do you believe in religiously? How does that affect how you want to raise kids? Do you even want kids? How do you spend your money? Do you want to travel? Like all of these much heavier questions have started not even started. They're happening now, and it's one a breath of fresh air because now it feels like having a wedding is more realistic, like where there's active work towards these goals, there's active conversations that are productive, but it brings that piece of maturity that now, okay, if we want to have a partnership, not just what does that look like, but how can we optimize this partnership in a way where we're not sitting here feeling like we're wasting our time and we get the most out of it, you know? I find that very beautiful. I find that really welcoming, and I find that it's also a piece of we're taking this journey seriously too. And that's something that I haven't gotten to experience a lot throughout my dating life, right? I think now there is a bit of a joke of like, oh, you had to wait for the guys to mature. Well, I mean, a little bit. Had to wait, grow, but I also had to mature myself. I had to find what I loved in a partner, find what I didn't want. I had to learn how to set boundaries for myself, like really stand on business on that. And that is still something that I struggle with because what can I say? Taking off those rose tinted glasses are hard, which brings me to a different point. The thing I've struggled in my evolution is seeing the potential in people. And it's a blessing, it's a gift, and it's a curse. The upside is you can see the journey that you could have with someone. As someone who wants to be like, yeah, I'm with you through thick and thin, when it's hard, when it's not. And as you're becoming who you are, I want to be on the journey of you finding you. The downside, though, is their potential. One, is only your perspective of their potential. And two, just because someone has potential doesn't mean they're going to live up to it. And that is a lesson that I've consistently had to sit with. And it's a hard lesson because obviously it means, the perception of them that you might want, it ain't happening. Or at least it might not happen for you. It might not be for you. It might be for someone else. Or the perception of their own potential might be completely different from you. So what they see for themselves, what they want for themselves, might not be what you want for them. And that's all right. You can't control that. You can only decide if that's what's good for you too. Does that fit in what you want for yourself? And if it doesn't, it might mean that y'all might not be it together. And it's easy to say now. It's been very difficult when I've been in the middle of it, obviously. Very, very difficult. But, we move, we grow, we move, we grow, we prosper, and we learn. And I think through this evolution, sorry, I've been reminiscing a lot about this journey, and I'm very happy with where I am, especially with just where me and my boyfriend are now. We are hopefully preparing to take a new step for ourselves, a next step in our chapter. And as we're continuing to move through our adult lives and build up what love means for us, I'm taking all these lessons in stride and applying them as I see fit. So, thank you for joining me for the convo. As I said, please subscribe if you haven't. And have a great day. Bye.